The desperate plea. The massive assembly hall on Proxima Station buzzed with the nervous energy of 100 different species. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for an emergency session of the Galactic Trade Union, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors, textures, and sizes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, however, the atmosphere was heavy with fear and desperation. Ambassador Zara Kelleth stood at the central podium, her crystalline blue skin pale with exhaustion. The Lyrians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders, their homeworld, colonies serving as neutral meeting grounds for diplomatic negotiations. They had never asked for military help before. They had never needed to. Honored representatives, Zara began, her melodic voice carrying across the vast chamber. 3 months ago, our outer colonies detected an approaching fleet. We thought it was another trading expedition. We were wrong. The holographic display behind her flickered to life, showing images that made even the most hardened military representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. Planets stripped bare of all organic matter. Cities reduced to geometric patterns of metal and dust. Vast mechanical swarms moving through space like cosmic locusts. The Ravager swarm has consumed 17 of our worlds, Zara continued, her voice beginning to crack. Each planet is completely stripped within 72 hours. No life remains. No structures survive. Even the oceans are drained and processed into raw materials. High Chancellor Thex of the Krillian Empire leaned forward in his floating chair. His reptilian features were set in a grim expression. Ambassador Kelleth, we sympathize with your plight. But the Ravager swarm is a legend, a myth from the old wars. The evidence suggests otherwise, Zara replied, activating another hologram. Our scientists have analyzed the debris patterns. These machines are unlike anything we have seen before. They operate with perfect efficiency, stripping planets layer by layer. They show no interest in negotiation or communication. They simply consume everything in their path. A murmur ran through the assembly. Several representatives began consulting their personal data devices, no doubt checking the security status of their own territories. Director Voss Grimaldi rose from his seat near the back of the chamber. He was human, a relatively new addition to the Galactic Trade Union. Earth had only joined the galactic community 15 years ago, and many species still considered humans to be primitive newcomers. Voss was tall and lean with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ambassador Kelleth, Voss said in accented Standard Galactic, what specific assistance are you requesting? Zara looked directly at him, and for a moment, hope flickered in her violet eyes. Military intervention. The Ravager swarm is moving toward our core worlds. We estimate they will reach Lyria Prime in 6 weeks. We need warships, soldiers, weapons, anything that can stop them. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives spoke in urgent whispers, translators working overtime to keep up with the babel of languages. Chancellor Thex called for order. The Krillian Empire regrets that we cannot provide military assistance at this time. Our forces are committed to defending our own borders against the hegemony incursions. One by one, the major powers declined to help. The Zentorian Federation was dealing with civil war. The Nexus Collective was engaged in territorial disputes with 3 neighboring species. The Valdris Union claimed their military was undergoing modernization and could not spare any ships. Each refusal hit Zara like a physical blow. She had traveled across the galaxy begging for help, and no one would take the risk. The Ravager swarm was too dangerous, too unknown. Better to let the Lyrians face destruction alone than risk their own worlds. Finally, when it seemed that all hope was lost, Director Grimaldi stood again. The United Earth Republic offers assistance to the Lyrian people. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives looked shocked, others amused. Chancellor Thex's scaled features twisted into what might have been a smile. Director Grimaldi, Thex said slowly, while we appreciate the gesture, Earth has a military force of perhaps 50 ships. The Lyrians need thousands of vessels to have any hope against the Ravager swarm. Voss nodded calmly. We understand the scope of the threat. We also understand that the Lyrian people deserve help, regardless of the odds. Ambassador Kelleth felt tears forming in her eyes. After all the refusals, the youngest and smallest member of the trade union was willing to help. It was almost certainly futile, but it was better than facing extinction alone. Director Grimaldi, she said formally, the Lyrian Republic accepts Earth's offer of assistance with gratitude. As the assembly session ended, several representatives approached Zara privately. The warning was always the same, delivered in different words but with the same underlying message. Be careful what you ask for, warned Ambassador Crix of the Valdris Union. Humans do not understand restraint. They do not know when to stop. They are a young species, added Chancellor Thex. They lack the wisdom that comes with age. Their help may cost you more than you bargain for. But Zara was desperate. Her people were dying. Her worlds were being consumed by mechanical monsters. If the humans wanted to throw their lives away, trying to help, she would not stop them. 3 days later, Captain Marcus Chen arrived at Lyria Prime aboard the Earth Defense Corps vessel Indomitable. He was younger than Zara had expected, with dark hair and intense brown eyes. Behind him came a fleet of 47 human ships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. It looked pathetically small against the vastness of space. Captain Chen, Zara said as they met in the orbital command center above Lyria Prime, I must be honest with you. Many believe this mission is hopeless. The Ravager swarm has never been stopped before. Marcus studied the tactical displays showing the approaching threat. The swarm filled an area of space larger than most solar systems, a writhing mass of mechanical death moving inexorably toward the Lyrian core worlds. Ambassador, he said quietly, there's something you need to understand about humans. We have a saying on Earth, the difficult we do immediately. The impossible just takes a little longer. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in the human captain's voice, a cold certainty that spoke of absolute determination. For the first time since accepting Earth's help, she wondered if the other species' warnings might have merit. What do you need from us? She asked. Everything you know about the Ravager technology, every scan, every analysis, every piece of debris you've recovered. We're going to study these machines until we understand them better than they understand themselves. Over the next 2 weeks, human scientists worked around the clock, analyzing Ravager samples with an intensity that surprised the Lyrian researchers. They dismantled captured drones piece by piece, reverse-engineered communication protocols, and mapped the swarm's behavioral patterns with mathematical precision. Dr. Sarah Kim, the human expedition's chief scientist, made the breakthrough that would change everything. She was examining molecular samples from a consumed planet when she noticed something odd about the consumption patterns. Captain, she called out excitedly from her lab. You need to see this. The Ravagers aren't random destroyers. They're following a specific programming matrix. Look at these molecular signatures. Marcus studied the data on her screen. They're targeting specific compounds? Exactly. Carbon-based life forms, certain metal alloys, water compositions. It's like they were programmed to consume specific types of matter and ignore others. That's why they're so efficient. They know exactly what they're looking for. And if we could reprogram that targeting matrix, Dr. Kim smiled, we could turn them against themselves. As the human ships moved into position between the Ravager swarm and Lyria Prime, Zara watched from the command center with growing unease. The humans had been secretive about their battle plans, sharing only basic tactical information with Lyrian forces. Captain Chen, she called over the communication channel, the swarm will reach our outer defenses in 6 hours. What are your orders for our ships? Stay back and observe, Marcus replied. This is going to get complicated. The first contact between human forces and the Ravager swarm was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of engaging in direct combat, human ships used precision strikes to capture individual Ravager drones, quickly analyzing their programming and uploading modified code before releasing them back into the swarm. It was a dangerous game. Human vessels had to get close enough to the mechanical locus to establish direct connections, all while avoiding the swarm's defensive weapons. 3 human ships were lost in the first hour, their crews sacrificing themselves to gather intelligence on Ravager systems. "This is madness," whispered Lyrian Admiral Vex as he watched the battle unfold. "They're throwing away their ships for a handful of captured drones." But Zara was beginning to understand. The humans weren't trying to destroy the swarm through conventional warfare. They were conducting the most complex hacking operation in galactic history, one drone at a time. As the hours passed, something strange began happening within the Ravager swarm. Individual drones started attacking their neighbors. Command ships found their own escort vessels turning against them. The perfect mechanical coordination that had made the swarm so deadly began to break down into chaos. "It's working," Dr. Kim reported from her position aboard the science vessel Discovery. "The modified programming is spreading through their network. Each infected drone is passing the new targeting protocols to others. They're starting to identify their own technology as enemy targets." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Ravager swarm, which had consumed 17 worlds without taking a single casualty, began consuming itself. Massive command ships were stripped down by their own support vessels. Drone swarms turned into swirling clouds of mechanical cannibalism. Within 18 hours, the threat that had terrorized the galaxy was reduced to floating debris and a handful of crippled vessels attempting to flee the system. Ambassador Kelleth stood in the command center, watching the destruction of her people's greatest enemy. She should have felt relief, gratitude, joy. Instead, she felt a growing sense of unease. "Captain Chen," she said over the communication channel, "you have done the impossible. The Ravager swarm is destroyed. My people owe you a debt that can never be repaid." "The job isn't finished yet," Marcus replied, and there was something in his voice that made Zara's blood run cold. "What do you mean?" "The threat is eliminated." "No, Ambassador, this threat is eliminated. But we need to make sure it never comes back." As Zara watched in growing alarm, the human fleet began spreading out across the system, not to depart, but to establish a search pattern. They were hunting down every piece of Ravager technology, every fragment of debris, every trace of the mechanical swarm's presence. "Captain," she said carefully, "surely this level of precaution is unnecessary. The swarm is destroyed." "Ambassador Kelleth," Marcus replied, and now his voice carried a tone of absolute authority. "You asked us for help. We intend to make sure you never need this kind of help again." That was when Zara realized the truth that the other species had tried to warn her about. Humans didn't just solve problems. They eliminated them so completely that they could never occur again. And they were just getting started. Human solutions. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as his fleet systematically scoured every cubic meter of space where the Ravager swarm had been destroyed. What had started as a rescue mission was evolving into something much more comprehensive, and Marcus could see the growing concern in Ambassador Kelleth's communications. "Captain," came Dr. Kim's voice over the comm system, "we've recovered and analyzed debris from 400 different Ravager vessel types. The technology is more sophisticated than we initially thought." Marcus nodded grimly. "Explain." "These machines weren't just programmed to consume planets. They were part of a larger network, designed to establish manufacturing bases wherever they went. Each world they consumed was being converted into a production facility for more Ravagers." The implications hit Marcus immediately. How many other swarms could be out there? Unknown. But the communication protocols we've decoded suggest this was just one finger of a much larger hand. There could be dozens of swarms operating in different sectors of the galaxy. Ambassador Kelleth's voice cut into the conversation from the Lyrian Command Center. "Captain Chen, while we appreciate your thoroughness, my government is concerned about the time your fleet is spending in our system. The immediate threat has been eliminated." Marcus exchanged glances with his first officer, Commander Elena Rodriguez. She was a veteran of Earth's colonial conflicts, and like most humans who had fought against seemingly impossible odds, she understood that winning a battle was just the beginning of winning a war. "Ambassador," Marcus replied carefully, "we've discovered evidence that the Ravager swarm you faced was part of a larger network. We need to track down the source before more swarms are deployed." There was a long pause before Kelleth responded. Captain, with respect, your mission was to help defend Lyrian worlds. That mission is complete. Our mission, Marcus said, his voice hardening slightly, was to help the Lyrian people. We can't do that effectively if we leave the job half-finished. Over. The next few days, the human fleet expanded its search pattern beyond the Lyrian system. Using captured Ravager navigation data, they began tracking the mechanical swarm's path back through the galaxy, following a trail of consumed worlds and harvested systems. What they found painted a terrifying picture. The Ravager swarm had been active for over 2 centuries, systematically consuming uninhabited worlds and building massive manufacturing complexes in hidden sectors of space. The attack on Lyrian colonies hadn't been random. It had been a test run before launching a galaxy-wide campaign of consumption. We've located 7 manufacturing complexes, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the reconnaissance vessel, Pathfinder. Each one is the size of a small moon, and they're all producing new swarm units. At current production rates, they could launch simultaneous attacks on every major galactic civilization within 6 months. Ambassador Kelleth received this news with a mixture of gratitude and growing alarm. The humans had not only saved her people but potentially the entire galaxy. However, the scope of their investigation was expanding far beyond anything the Lyrian government had authorized. Captain Chen, she said during their daily briefing, the Galactic Trade Union is requesting a status report on human military operations. Several member species are concerned about Earth vessels operating in their territorial boundaries. Marcus looked up from the tactical display showing Ravager manufacturing sites scattered across 3 sectors of space. We're tracking down the source of a galactic threat, Ambassador. These manufacturing complexes pose a danger to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Perhaps, Kelleth replied carefully, but you're doing so without any formal authorization from the trade union. Some species view this as military expansion under the guise of peacekeeping. The warning was clear, but Marcus had seen what the Ravagers could do. He had watched entire worlds reduced to geometric patterns of consumption. The idea of leaving active manufacturing sites operational was unthinkable. Ambassador, we need to discuss something that might be difficult to hear. Kelleth felt her crystalline skin growing cold. Yes? The Lyrian colonies weren't attacked randomly. The Ravagers were conducting a final test before beginning a galactic campaign. Every major civilization is on their target list, including Earth. We're not doing this just to help other species anymore. We're doing it to survive. That changed everything. If Earth itself was threatened, then human military action became a matter of species survival rather than altruistic intervention. Under galactic law, any species had the right to pursue threats to their homeworld wherever those threats might lead. But the scope of human operations continued to expand in ways that made other species nervous. Dr. Kim made the next breakthrough. While analyzing the Central Command protocols from the largest Ravager manufacturing complex. Captain, you need to see this. The Ravagers aren't just machines. They're the automated defense system of an extinct species. Marcus studied the decoded data on her screen. Defense system? Look at the original programming. These machines were created by something called the Architects about 500 years ago. Their homeworld was under attack by an unknown enemy, so they built the Ravagers as an automated response. The machines were programmed to consume any potential threat and use the resources to build more defensive units. But the Architects are extinct, dead for centuries. But their machines keep following the last orders they received. Eliminate all potential threats to their creator's territory. Commander Rodriguez leaned over Marcus's shoulder to study the data. That means every inhabited world in the galaxy is considered a potential threat by these machines. Exactly. And there are dozens of manufacturing complexes still active, building new swarms to eliminate species that the Architects never even encountered. The solution was obvious to the human mind, but it would require a level of military intervention that would alarm every species in the galaxy. The manufacturing complexes had to be destroyed, all of them, before they could launch coordinated attacks on galactic civilization. Marcus opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is Command Actual. We've identified the full scope of the Ravager threat. We're looking at simultaneous attacks on every major world in the galaxy within 6 months unless we act immediately. What are your orders, sir? Came the reply from Captain Sarah Walsh aboard the destroyer Relentless. We're going to shut down the entire network. Every manufacturing complex, every automated facility, every piece of Ravager technology in the galaxy. No exceptions. The campaign that followed would be remembered as the most comprehensive military operation in galactic history. Human forces split into 7 task groups, each targeting a different sector where Ravager manufacturing complexes had been identified. But the humans didn't just destroy the facilities. They studied them, reverse-engineered them, and adapted their technology for defensive purposes. Every world that had been threatened by the Ravagers found itself under the protection of modified human defense systems. This is getting out of hand, Chancellor Thex complained during an emergency session of the Galactic Trade Union. Human forces have established military bases in 47 star systems. They claim it's for defensive purposes, but they're effectively occupying half the galaxy. Director Grimaldi stood calmly at the podium. The human forces are protecting worlds that would otherwise be defenseless against future Ravager attacks. We've identified over 300 dormant manufacturing complexes that could reactivate at any time. But human bases on our worlds? Protested Ambassador Crix. This was not part of the original agreement. The original agreement was to help the Lyrian people, Grimaldi replied. We discovered that helping them effectively required helping everyone. Ambassador Kelleth sat in her chair, listening to the debate with growing unease. The humans had saved her people, saved the entire galaxy from an existential threat. But in doing so, they had established themselves as the dominant military power in galactic civilization. Every world that had been protected by human forces now found itself with permanent human advisors. Every species that had been saved from Ravager attacks was now dependent on human technology for their defense. What had started as a plea for help had become something much more complex. Ambassador Kelleth, Chancellor Thex said during a recess, your people asked for human assistance. Do you believe they have exceeded the scope of that request? Kelleth looked out at the stars, where human patrol ships now maintained constant vigilance against threats that might never come. I asked them to save my people from the Ravagers. They saved the entire galaxy. And now? Now I'm beginning to understand what the others meant when they warned me about human help. They don't just solve your problem. They solve every problem that might be related to your problem. And then they solve the problems that might cause those problems. Is that necessarily bad? Kelleth thought about her worlds, now safe and protected behind human defense grids. Her people could trade freely again, knowing that no Ravager swarm would ever threaten them. But they would never again be truly independent. I don't know, she admitted. But I'm starting to suspect we're about to find out. The unintended consequences. 6 months after the destruction of the last Ravager manufacturing complex, Ambassador Zara Kelleth stood in her office on Lyria Prime, looking out at a sky filled with human patrol ships. The irony was not lost on her. She had begged for protection from mechanical swarms, and now she lived under the constant presence of human vessels that followed precise patrol patterns with mechanical efficiency. A soft chime announced an incoming communication from the Galactic Trade Union. Chancellor Thex's reptilian features appeared on her screen, his expression more troubled than she had ever seen it. Ambassador Kelleth, he began without preamble. We need to discuss the human situation. Zara had been expecting this call for weeks. Reports had been filtering in from across the galaxy about the expanding scope of human operations. What had started as anti-Ravager patrols had evolved into comprehensive security sweeps that covered dozens of sectors. What specific concerns does the Union have? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Human forces have established permanent installations in 87 star systems, Thex replied, consulting a datapad. They claim these are necessary to monitor for dormant Ravager technology, but their search patterns now cover territory larger than the Krillian Empire. And they have found dormant technology? Yes, Thex admitted reluctantly. 17 inactive manufacturing nodes, 3 hidden supply depots, and what they call a command nexus that was apparently coordinating Ravager operations across the entire galaxy. The humans have eliminated all of them. Zara felt the familiar conflict between gratitude and unease. Every Ravager facility the humans destroyed was a potential threat to billions of lives eliminated. But the scope of their operations had grown far beyond anything her government had envisioned when they accepted Earth's offer of help. Chancellor, what does the Union want from me? Your people have the closest relationship with human forces. We need to know. Are they planning to withdraw once they complete their security operations? Before Zara could answer, her aide entered the office with an urgent expression. Ambassador, Captain Chen is requesting an immediate meeting. He says, it's about a new threat. Zara felt her heart sink. In her experience, when humans discovered a new threat, it inevitably led to expanded military operations. Captain Chen arrived within the hour, accompanied by Dr. Kim and a data analyst Zara hadn't met before. The human captain looked tired, but determined, as if he had been working around the clock on some critical problem. Ambassador, he began without preamble, we've discovered something that changes everything we thought we knew about the Ravagers. Zara gestured for them to sit at her conference table, noting that Chancellor Thex was still connected via the communication link. Whatever the humans had found, the Galactic Trade Union would hear it immediately. Dr. Kim activated a holographic display showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of destroyed Ravager facilities, while blue dots indicated human bases and patrol routes. While analyzing data from the Central Command Nexus, Dr. Kim explained, we discovered that the Ravagers were not just following their original programming. They were actively evolving, adapting their strategies based on resistance they encountered. Meaning? Zara asked, though she dreaded the answer. Meaning they were learning from every battle, every defense system, every species they encountered. The attack on your colonies wasn't just a test, it was a learning experience. They were studying galactic defensive capabilities. Captain Chen leaned forward intensely. Ambassador, the Ravagers were preparing for something much bigger than planetary consumption. They were gathering intelligence for an invasion that would have overwhelmed every military force in the galaxy. The data analyst spoke up for the first time. We've decoded their final operational directive. In 3 years, they would have launched simultaneous attacks on every major homeworld in the galaxy. Not to consume them, but to capture them. They were building an empire. Chancellor Thex's voice cut through the silence that followed. If this is true, then every species in the galaxy owes humans a debt that cannot be repaid. Maybe, Captain Chen replied, but that's not why I'm here. He activated another holographic display, this one showing energy signatures scattered across previously empty regions of space. We've detected similar technological signatures in the Andromeda galaxy. The Ravagers weren't unique to the Milky Way. They were part of a broader pattern of automated conquest that spans multiple galaxies. Zara felt the room spinning around. You're saying there are more threats like the Ravagers? We're saying the Ravagers were probably just the advanced scouts for something much larger. Dr. Kim has identified at least 17 different technological signatures that suggest automated armies operating in nearby galaxies. Captain, Chancellor, Thex said carefully, what are you proposing? Chen's answer was everything Zara had feared. We need to expand our security operations to intergalactic space. We can't just defend the Milky Way anymore. We need to neutralize threats before they reach our galaxy. The implications were staggering. If humans began operating outside the galaxy, their influence would become truly limitless. They would no longer be just the dominant military power in galactic civilization. They would become the guardians of local galactic cluster. This is exactly what we were afraid of, Thex said after Chen and his team departed. Human operations have no natural limits. Every solution creates the need for a bigger solution. Zara nodded sadly. When I asked for their help, I thought the worst-case scenario was that they would fail and my people would die. I never considered what would happen if they succeeded too well. Over the following weeks, the scope of human operations continued to expand. Reconnaissance ships began probing the edges of intergalactic space. Research facilities were established to study threats that might exist in other galaxies. Defense networks were extended to cover the entire galactic rim. The Galactic Trade Union called an emergency session to address what many species now saw as human expansionism, disguised as protective operations. Director Grimaldi, Chancellor Thex, began formally. The Union appreciates Earth's efforts to protect galactic civilization. However, many member species are concerned about the scope of human military operations. Voss Grimaldi stood at the podium with the same calm demeanor he had shown months earlier when first offering help to the Lyrians. Chancellor, we understand these concerns. However, we have identified genuine threats that require immediate attention. Threats in other galaxies. Threats that will reach this galaxy if we don't address them proactively. The Ravagers were just the beginning. Ambassador Kelleth rose from her seat. Director Grimaldi, I speak as the representative of the species that first requested human assistance. We are grateful beyond measure for what Earth has done. But we must ask, is there any limit to the threats you will pursue? Grimaldi considered the question seriously. Ambassador, I'll give you an honest answer. Humans don't believe in acceptable losses when it comes to protecting innocent lives. If there's a threat out there that could harm galactic civilization, we will pursue it until it's eliminated. Even if that threat is in another galaxy? Even if that threat is in another universe? The chamber fell silent. Several representatives began consulting their data devices, no doubt calculating the implications of unlimited human protective operations. But surely, Chancellor Thex said slowly, there must be some point at which the cost of prevention exceeds the benefit. Not from our perspective, Grimaldi replied. The cost of prevention is always less than the cost of recovery. Ambassador, Kelleth felt a chill run through her crystalline form. She had asked humans to save her people from one specific threat. Instead, they had appointed themselves the protectors of galactic civilization and were now expanding that role to include intergalactic security. After the session, she returned to her quarters on Proxima Station and composed a personal message to her government on Lyria Prime. To the Lyrian Council, she began. I write to you as someone who has learned a painful truth about asking humans for help. They are the most capable species I have ever encountered. They are also the most thorough. When you ask them to solve a problem, they solve that problem, and every related problem they can identify. They eliminate not just the immediate threat, but every possible source of future threats. She paused, looking out at the stars where human ships now patrolled with quiet efficiency. 6 months ago, I begged them to save our people from the Ravagers. They did that and more. They saved our entire galaxy from a threat we didn't even know existed. They continue to protect us from threats we haven't even discovered yet. But in saving us, they have made themselves indispensable. Every world in the galaxy now depends on human protection. Every species relies on human technology for defense. We are all safer than we have ever been, but we are also less free than we have ever been. The humans do not rule us through conquest or intimidation. They rule us through competence and necessity. They have made themselves so essential to galactic security that we cannot survive without them. I do not believe this was their intention when they first offered to help. But it is the inevitable result of asking a species that views problems as challenges to be completely eliminated, rather than managed or contained. She finished the message and sent it to Lyria Prime, then walked to her window to watch the human patrol ships maintaining their eternal vigilance. A week later, she received a visit from Captain Chen. He looked older, more tired, but still carried himself with the quiet confidence that had first given her hope when her people were facing extinction. Ambassador, he said, settling into a chair in her office. I wanted to speak with you personally about something. Yes? We've been monitoring communications traffic across the galaxy. We know that many species are concerned about the scope of human operations. Zara nodded. Can you blame them? Chen was quiet for a moment. No, I can't. From their perspective, we probably look like conquerors who use protection as an excuse for expansion. Don't you? Honestly, I don't know anymore. When we first Came to help your people, it was simple. Bad guys were trying to hurt good guys and we wanted to stop them. But every problem we solved revealed bigger problems. Every threat we eliminated exposed larger threats. And now we're protecting the galaxy from threats that exist in other galaxies. And we're probably going to keep expanding that protection until we're sure there are no more threats anywhere. Zara felt a mixture of sympathy and fear. Captain, do you realize what you've become? We've become what you asked us to become, Chen replied quietly. We've become the species that stands between galactic civilization and everything that wants to destroy it. But did we ask for that? Chen looked out at the stars, where human ships maintained their ceaseless patrols. Ambassador, let me ask you something. If the Ravagers returned tomorrow, would you want us to stop protecting your people? The answer came without hesitation. No. If a new threat emerged from another galaxy, would you want us to ignore it until it reached your homeworld? No. Then you understand why we can't stop. Every species in the galaxy faces the same choice you faced 6 months ago. Accept human protection or face threats that could destroy entire civilizations. But the cost? The cost is independence, Chen finished. The benefit is survival. Every species gets to make that choice for themselves. After he left, Zara sat alone in her office, contemplating the impossible situation her species had created. They had asked for help from a species that didn't understand the concept of enough. The humans had saved them, protected them, and made them dependent all at the same time. A communication alert drew her attention to her desk screen. It was a message from Director Grimaldi, marked as urgent and addressed to all member species of the Galactic Trade Union. Attention all trade union members, the message began. Human reconnaissance forces have identified a new threat approaching from the Magellanic Clouds. Automated probe swarms of unknown origin are moving toward our galaxy. Estimated arrival, 18 months. Earth Defense Corps is prepared to extend our protective operations to intercept this threat before it reaches trade union space. We are also offering defensive technology upgrades to any species that requests them. As always, our goal is the protection of all galactic civilizations. We invite any species that wishes to participate in joint defensive operations to contact Earth Command. Zara read the message twice, then looked out her window at the human patrol ships. 18 months from now, those ships would be fighting new enemies in the void between galaxies, expanding human influence even further from the original Lyrian system where it all began. She opened a new communication channel to the Lyrian Council. To my government, she began. I write to inform you that humanity has discovered new threats approaching our galaxy. They are offering to protect us once again. I recommend we accept their offer. Not because we have a choice, we lost that freedom the moment we asked for their help. We accept because the alternative is extinction, and because we have learned that when humans offer protection, they mean it completely and permanently. They asked for nothing when they first helped us. They ask for nothing now. But by accepting their help, we have given them everything. They now control galactic security not through conquest but through necessity. We are safer than we have ever been. We are also more dependent than we ever imagined possible. This is the price of human help. They solve every problem so thoroughly that you never need to solve it yourself again. But you also never get the chance to. I do not regret asking for their assistance. My people are alive because of their intervention. But I understand now why other species fear human competence as much as they appreciate it. Humans don't just win wars. They eliminate the possibility of future wars by controlling every factor that could lead to conflict. They don't just solve problems. They solve the systems that create problems. We asked them to save us from one swarm of machines. Instead, they appointed themselves the eternal guardians of galactic civilization. And the most disturbing part is that they're probably right to do so. As she finished her message, Zara noticed a new formation of human ships moving through the system. They were larger than the previous vessels, designed for long-range operations in the void between galaxies. Somewhere in that fleet was Captain Chen preparing to face threats that hadn't even reached their galaxy yet. He would fight them with the same relentless determination he had shown against the Ravagers. He would win, because humans always seemed to win. And after he won, there would be new threats to discover, new problems to solve, new regions of space that required human protection. The cycle would continue until human influence extended across the entire universe, all in the name of keeping everyone safe. Zara had asked for help 6 months ago. She was beginning to realize that she would be receiving that help for the rest of galactic history, whether she wanted it or not. The communication system chimed with an incoming message from Captain Chen. Ambassador Kelleth, his familiar voice said, "We're departing for the Magellanic Clouds tomorrow. Before we go, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Zara replied, surprised. "If you hadn't asked for our help, we never would have discovered the Ravager threat. Billions of people across the galaxy are alive because you had the courage to ask for assistance when others wouldn't. Captain, do you ever wonder if we would have been better off trying to solve our problems ourselves?" There was a long pause before Chen answered. "Ambassador, I've seen what happens when problems aren't solved completely. They come back bigger and deadlier than before. Maybe other species could have found a way to defeat the Ravagers eventually. Maybe they could have developed defenses against the new threats we're tracking. But maybe they couldn't, and the cost of being wrong about that is measured in civilizations. So you'll keep expanding your operations? Keep taking on bigger threats? Until there are no more threats to take on," Chen confirmed. "That's what you asked us to do, even if you didn't realize it at the time. And if we asked you to stop, Ambassador," Chen said quietly, "would you ask us to stop protecting your people?" Zara looked out at the peaceful skies of Lyria Prime, knowing that ships full of her people moved safely between the stars under human protection. "No," she admitted, "I wouldn't." "Then you understand why we can't stop until the job is finished. When will it be finished? When every innocent life in the universe is safe from harm." As the communication ended, Zara realized she had her answer to the question that had been troubling her for months. The humans would never stop expanding their protective operations because they had redefined success as the complete elimination of all possible threats. They had made themselves indispensable to galactic civilization not through malice or ambition, but through an absolute refusal to accept good enough as an acceptable outcome. In asking for their help, she had unleashed a force that would never rest, never retreat, and never stop growing until it had solved every problem in the universe. It was, she reflected, exactly what she had hoped for, and exactly what she should have feared. The next morning, she watched as the human fleet departed for the Magellanic Clouds, heading toward threats that hadn't even been discovered yet. Behind them, they left a galaxy safer than it had ever been, protected by the most comprehensive defense network in galactic history, and completely dependent on the species that had created it. Zara opened one final communication to her government. "The humans are gone again, hunting new threats in distant galaxies. They will be back with new technologies, new defense systems, and new reasons why their protection is essential for our survival. This is what it means to ask humans for help. You get more help than you ever imagined possible, and less independence than you ever thought you could survive with. But we do survive, all of us, because they make sure of it. I have learned that there are worse fates than being protected by someone who refuses to let any harm come to you, even if that protection comes at the cost of ever being able to protect yourself again." She closed the communication and returned to her duties as Lyrian ambassador to the Galactic Trade Union, knowing that her primary job now was managing the relationship between her people and their human protectors. It was a job that would never end because human protection, once offered, was never withdrawn. That was both the promise and the price of asking humans for help. They solved your problem so completely that you never had to worry about it again. But you also never got the chance to solve it yourself. In the end, Zara thought, perhaps that was exactly what her people had needed all along, even if it meant they would never be truly independent again.